Hello, yesterday I streamed IS-5 for about 8 hours and saw most of its content, so here's a summary of what I think about it. In short, if you like IS-4 you'll probably like IS-5 as well. It keeps the high freedom of choice when exploring from IS-4 and even expands on it. The resource that lets you travel up and down routes can also be used to reroll nodes in front of you into something else now, so you will very rarely end up being forced into an unwinnable emergency fight. The vision reduction in IS-4 is no longer present, so there is no punishment for using up all of your keys. The main gimmick is related to the reworked rune system. Runes now have a weight and you can only carry so many. You can increase this limit through operator safe houses and items, but if you exceed the limit you will lose 1 life point with each node you take. That sounds like you have an incentive to keep few runes in your inventory, but that's not always true. This doesn't consume objective shields, so you can use it to keep the King's relics active while stacking a ton of shields on top. This system on its own finally made the King's relics viable items instead of memes. The runes themselves are separated into 3 types. The keys that you use to effect the exploration, buffs for combat, crafting runes which can be used to make relics in certain nodes. This node appears once for every floor after floor 1. You can also get rid of combat runes to give yourself objective shields or keys to give yourself hope. If you need a bit of hope you can craft that, if your lives are low you can fix that. It's a very flexible node that lets you balance your run better. There's another new node in which you select 1 or 2 operators to fight one of 3 enemy groups in a duel. Harder enemies equals better rewards and you don't lose anything if you fail. My impression of it is that the fights are too easy, so it's just a very safe node that lets you get an item and a recruit voucher easily. The boss keys have been changed. Instead of a condition tied to the boss key, you get a unique relic that only works inside of boss keys. Meaning if you go into 2 or 3 boss keys you will have all those unique relics active for the last one. They can be things like plus 30 initial SP but reduced SP gain, double ingot gain but double life loss and so on. The variety is fairly high. On top of that you can get fights from the next floor inside of boss keys, which makes them a bit unpredictable in terms of difficulty. I think they're less deadly than -4 deploy limit in IS-4, but they can still be dangerous. I'd say the combat stages are the biggest difference from IS-4. Getting rushed down in 5 seconds was the norm in IS-4 for quite a few stages. When I'm debating whether I can beat a hard stage there, I'm usually thinking about DP. In IS-5 you have a ton of stages with pre-placed enemies across the stage, and you need to actively fight them for spacing so you can deploy your operators. DP isn't the limit, space is. This isn't the only type there is of course, but it's definitely a theme among the higher floor maps. I enjoy it myself since it gives you many options on how to move across the maps and where to set up. I'd rate the bosses a bit higher than IS-4 overall. Even though one of them is a straight DPS check, I find it entertaining enough that I don't mind fighting it repeatedly. Also, you finally get to murder Kazdel. Finally, and I think for a lot of people more importantly, the debuff system has been heavily reworked. You no longer get stacking debuffs from leaking. Under certain conditions you can still get debuffs, but they will only last for a few nodes, so it's a temporary demerit, instead of the game punishing you more and more for every mistake. Overall, I think it addressed a lot of the complaints I've seen about IS-4, like the strong debuffs or the enemies rushing you down, turning maps into DP checks. Now, neither of those are flaws for me, and I haven't played enough IS-5 to know whether it or IS-4 is my favorite. I think the changes make it easier for less experienced players to get into it and have fun with it, so if you didn't like IS-4 you might still want to give it a try, even though they're similar. That's it from me. I'll go back to streaming IS-5 now.